Welcome to Language Swap, everyone, a fun way to learn English. We are so excited to have you join us today.
Hey, Sally, can I ask you something a little uncomfortable?
That's never a good opening, but go ahead.
Have you ever known exactly what you wanted to say in English? Had the words right there, completely ready, and then just said nothing?
Oh, more times than I'd like to admit, honestly.
That's today's episode, not about vocabulary, not about grammar, about the thing that actually stops most people from speaking English, which is everything happening inside their head before a single word comes out.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Sally.
And I'm Alex today. We're talking about something we almost never discuss on this podcast. Not what to say, but why so many people can't make themselves say it.
This one's level B1 to C1, and if you've ever frozen mid-sentence or rehearsed something in your head for so long the moment passed, this episode is exactly for you.
And if you're a little below that level, stay with us anyway. The story is worth following closely.
Quick favor before we start, if you're enjoying the podcast, please like this episode and subscribe. It really helps more people find us.
Okay, let's get into it.
Tell me how this actually starts for people, because I think most learners assume the problem is vocabulary.
That's exactly the trap. Someone studies for months, knows thousands of words, can read a newspaper, understand a podcast, and then a native speaker asks them something simple and their mind just goes blank.
Why does that happen, though? Because the knowledge is clearly there.
I think it's because speaking isn't just a language skill, it's a performance under pressure. And the moment you add an audience, even one person, something shifts.
Something shifts. Say more about that.
Your brain stops processing the language and starts monitoring itself. Instead of thinking about what to say, you start thinking about how you sound, whether you're making mistakes, what the other person must be thinking about you.
And all of that monitoring is happening at the same time you're supposed to be forming a sentence.
Exactly that. And the human brain genuinely can't do both well at once. The self-monitoring wins because it feels more urgent, and the sentence never comes out.
I want to share something, actually, because I think it connects to this exactly. A few years ago, I was in a meeting, completely fluent conversation happening around me, and someone turned and asked me directly what I thought.
And what happened when they asked?
I knew exactly what I thought. I had a clear opinion, I had the words, I had the structure, and I sat there for about 3 seconds that felt like 30 and said something completely different from what I actually meant to say.
What actually came out instead of your real thought?
Something vague and safe, something that sounded okay, but had none of the actual point I'd been holding in my head.
What happened in those 3 seconds, do you think?
The thought came in, first, my real opinion, and then immediately after it, a second thought. What if I say this wrong? What if they don't understand me? What if I sound less competent than everyone else in this room?
And the second thought won.
The second thought absolutely won. And afterward, I sat there genuinely frustrated because the first thought was the better one, and I let the second one erase it completely.
I think that experience is so universal, honestly, that most people don't even realize it's a problem they could address. They just accept it as I'm not a natural speaker and move on.
That's such a damaging conclusion to draw, actually, because I'm not a natural speaker becomes a permanent identity instead of a temporary pattern that can genuinely change.
Let's talk about what's actually happening there, the inner critic specifically, because I think naming it changes how you relate to it.
The inner critic, that voice that translates every sentence before it lets you say it, checks it for mistakes, and then often decides it's safer to just stay quiet.
And the cruel part is that the inner critic disguises itself as helpfulness. It sounds like caution. It sounds like quality control.
I'll speak when I'm ready. I'll say it when I'm sure it's right. I don't want to make mistakes in front of people.
All of which sound reasonable, none of which actually get you closer to speaking.
Because ready never arrives. The inner critic keeps moving the goalpost. One more grammar rule learned, one more vocabulary set memorized, one more month of preparation.
And meanwhile, the people who are actually improving their spoken English are making mistakes in public constantly and surviving every single one of them. That's such a key shift, honestly. The idea that mistakes in public are survivable, not just tolerable, actually survivable.
I want to ask you something directly. Actually, what's the worst thing that has ever actually happened to you when you made a speaking mistake in English?
Honestly, someone asked me to repeat myself once. That was the worst of it.
Not laughed at, not humiliated. Just asked to repeat.
Just asked to repeat, which I did, and then the conversation continued.
And yet, the fear of that moment before it happened was enough to keep you quiet for how long?
Much longer than I'd like to admit, honestly. The anticipation of the discomfort was so much larger than the discomfort itself ever actually was.
That gap between the imagined consequence and the real consequence is where most people's spoken English lives and dies.
Let me ask you the same question then. What's the actual worst thing that happened to you when you spoke imperfectly?
Someone smiled, not unkindly, just a small, warm, I understood you kind of smile. And I remember feeling embarrassed in the moment and then realizing 5 minutes later that nothing bad had happened at all.
A smile. The worst outcome was a smile.
A warm smile. And somehow before that moment, I'd been treating that possibility as something close to catastrophic.
I think that's exactly the thing we need to say clearly today. The catastrophe almost never comes. What comes instead is a brief moment of imperfection, and then life continues.
And the more often you let those brief, imperfect moments happen, the smaller they feel each time.
Until one day you realize you're not thinking about them anymore. You're just talking.
I want to bring up something practical now, because I think people want more than just be brave. They want something they can actually do differently starting today.
The first thing is the simplest and the hardest at the same time. Speak before you're ready.
Say more about that because it sounds almost reckless.
It sounds reckless until you realize what ready actually means in this context. Ready means perfect. Ready means no risk of mistakes. Ready means the inner critic has given you full approval, which it never will.
So speaking before you're ready just means speaking before the inner critic finishes its checklist.
Exactly that. Start the sentence. Trust that the rest will follow. It almost always does.
What's the second thing people can do differently?
Separate the mistake from the meaning. Most listeners, almost all listeners, care about the meaning first. If they understood what you meant, the conversation moves forward. The grammar is secondary.
That's such an important reframe, honestly, because learners tend to grade themselves on grammar, while native speakers are grading the interaction on connection and clarity.
Completely different scoring systems. And when you're using the learner's scoring system, every mistake is a failure. You are measuring the wrong thing entirely.
And the third thing, what's that one?
Replace, I might say this wrong, with I'll say this and see what happens. One is a prediction that stops you. The other is an experiment that moves you forward.
From prediction to experiment. That's such a different relationship with the moment.
And experiments, by definition, can go either way. You don't fail an experiment, you get information. What do you think, Sally?
I love that framing, actually speaking as information gathering instead of performance.
No performance needs to be perfect, but every performance teaches you something the rehearsal never could.
I want to go back to your story, actually, the one about being asked to repeat yourself, because I think there's something else in there.
What do you mean by that exactly?
After they asked you to repeat, and you did, and the conversation continued. Did you notice any change in yourself after that?
Honestly, yes. The next time I spoke, it was slightly easier. Not dramatically easier, just slightly. Like something small had been disproven.
That's exactly how it works. I think every time you speak and nothing terrible happens, you're quietly updating your internal evidence. The catastrophe didn't come this time either.
And gradually, slowly, almost imperceptibly, the fear shrinks. Not because you became brave, because you gathered enough evidence to stop believing the catastrophe was coming.
That's genuinely the whole mechanism right there. It's not about conquering fear. It's about accumulating evidence until the fear runs out of things to point at.
Until the fear runs out of things to point at. I think that's the sentence from today that I'm going to carry with me.
Me too. Honestly, that one lands differently when you actually hear it out loud.
I want to add one more thing, actually, because I think it's important and we haven't said it directly yet.
Go ahead. I want to make sure we say this clearly.
The inner critic isn't wrong to want you to sound good. That's not the problem. The problem is that it thinks silence protects you, when actually silence is the one thing that guarantees nothing improves.
Say that again, because I think that's the most important sentence of the entire episode.
Silence feels like protection, but it's actually the only option that guarantees nothing changes. Every time you speak, something shifts, even if just slightly, even if no one else notices. Every time you stay silent to avoid discomfort, the discomfort gets exactly the same size or bigger.
It genuinely feeds on avoidance. The longer you wait, the louder it gets.
Completely, that the inner critic tells you to wait, and while you wait, it grows. The only thing that actually shrinks it is doing the thing it says you're not ready for.
I think what strikes me about that is how backwards it feels in the moment. In the moment, staying quiet feels like the smart, careful choice.
And speaking feels reckless, unpolished, risky.
But you're describing a situation where the reckless choice is actually the one that leads somewhere, and the careful choice is the one that keeps you exactly where you are.
Which is exactly why so many learners plateau at a level that's just below what they're actually capable of. They have the knowledge. They're missing the willingness to perform it imperfectly in front of another person.
And that willingness can't come from studying more, it only comes from doing it.
Once, and then again, and then again, each time slightly less terrifying than the last, almost imperceptibly, until one day you realize the inner critic has gone quiet.
Not gone entirely, maybe, but quiet enough that you can hear yourself think over it.
That's a good enough place to get to. You don't need to eliminate the inner critic. You just need it to get quiet enough that you can start the sentence anyway.
And I think that's a good place to move toward our word tour.
All right, let's slow down and go through the important words from today.
Our first word is freeze up.
Freeze up, to suddenly become unable to speak or act, especially from nervousness or pressure.
In today's episode, we talked about freezing up in the middle of a conversation, even when the words are right there.
You could say, I froze up completely when they asked me directly.
Or the more I worried about mistakes, the more I froze up.
Our next word is inner critic.
Inner critic, the internal voice that judges your performance, often harshly, especially before or during a risky moment.
In today's episode, we talked about the inner critic disguising itself as caution or quality control.
You could say, my inner critic told me to wait until I was ready.
Or, learning to ignore the inner critic is half the battle of speaking a second language.
Our next word is anticipation.
Anticipation, the feeling of expecting something to happen, often used when the expectation is stronger or more intense than the event itself.
In today's episode, we talked about how the anticipation of discomfort was far worse than the actual discomfort turned out to be.
You could say the anticipation of making a mistake kept me silent for years.
Or the anticipation was so much worse than the moment itself ever was.
Our next word is reframe.
Reframe, to look at a situation from a completely different angle, changing how you interpret or relate to it.
In today's episode, we talked about reframing speaking as an experiment rather than a performance.
You could say, I reframed every mistake as information instead of failure.
Or reframing, the situation changed how I felt about speaking before I was ready.
Our final word is imperceptibly.
Imperceptibly, in a way that is so gradual or subtle that it can barely be noticed even as it's happening.
In today's episode, we talked about confidence building almost imperceptibly, quietly, one survived moment at a time.
You could say, the fear shrank almost imperceptibly, but it did shrink.
Or, progress in speaking confidence happens imperceptibly until one day you realize something has shifted.
So, today's words: freeze up, inner critic, anticipation, reframe, imperceptibly.
And they connect perfectly to today's whole message.
The inner critic triggers anticipation that causes you to freeze up.
Reframe speaking as an experiment, and the fear shrinks imperceptibly, one moment at a time.
And that takes us into say it better.
First sentence, I get nervous and can't speak.
Honest, but let's sharpen it.
A stronger version, I freeze up when the pressure is on, even when I know exactly what I want to say.
That version names the specific mechanism, not just the outcome.
Next sentence, I wait until I'm sure before I speak.
True, but let's reframe it.
A better version, I used to wait until I was ready, but ready never actually came until I started speaking first.
That version captures the shift in understanding, not just the behavior.
Next sentence, I'm afraid to make mistakes.
Relatable. Let's be more precise.
A more natural version, the anticipation of making a mistake has always felt much worse than the mistake itself ever actually was.
That version isolates exactly where the fear lives, in the anticipation, not the moment.
Final sentence, I'm getting better slowly.
Simple. Let's build on it.
A stronger version, my confidence is building almost imperceptibly, but I can feel that something has genuinely shifted.
That version honors the slowness without making it feel like failure.
And that's a good place to end. Say it better.
On speaking before you're ready.
On reframing mistakes as experiments, not evidence of inadequacy.
On letting the fear run out of things to point at. One small survived moment at a time.
Before we wrap up, here's what to actually do this week.
Find one moment today where you would normally stay quiet to avoid imperfection.
And say the thing anyway, imperfectly if necessary.
Notice what actually happens, not what the inner critic predicted would happen, what actually happened.
Because the evidence you collect this week is quieter and more honest than anything the inner critic has ever told you.
Tell us in the comments, what's one thing you've been stopping yourself from saying in English, and what's the worst thing you imagine would happen if you actually said it?
Keep it real. Keep it specific.
If today's episode made you want to open your mouth a little sooner than usual, share it with someone who's been waiting to be ready for far too long.
Because ready is a moving target, the inner critic sets, and the only way to actually reach it is to stop waiting for it and start talking anyway.
One imperfect sentence at a time.
Thanks so much for listening, everyone.
We'll see you in the next episode.